In this video, I'll introduce you to XamDataGrid, the grid component in NetAdvantage for WPF line of business, and specifically how you can export its records to a Word document. I've created a sample project here to illustrate the approach and demonstrate the variety of settings you can use in this export operation. So let's run this sample now just to give you an idea of how this actually functions. What we're seeing here is a single window with the XamDataGrid control bound to some hierarchical data and also a few checkboxes on top. So we're going to use these checkboxes to set settings to control the export to Word. So in the grid control below, we have record filtering activated. We have a couple of summaries on the columns set up, and we also have hierarchical data. So what we'd like to do is let's first see what exporting this entire data set would look like. So I'll just click the Export to Word button here, and that causes a progress bar to appear in the header of the grid. Let me now click OK. And this is the Word file that was generated from this export operation. As you can see, there are no expanded hierarchical levels in this data set, and we can also see the summary rows, and the entire data set has been exported. So let's change some of the settings in the export here just to illustrate the flexibility which the export component allows you to have in this operation. So let's, for example, exclude summaries, and also let's apply a filter here. So what we expect to see now are just 5 rows corresponding to the 5 rows here which match the filter, and no summary row. So let's do that. Exactly, we get the 5 rows with no summary row since we've deactivated the summaries. Let's say we'd like to exclude from the export any filters that the user has set, meaning that even though we can only see 5 rows here, we would export the entire data set, including rows which do not match this filtering criteria. So checking the exclude record filters checkbox, I'll now export the grid once more, and you can see that the entire data set has been exported, and now we're going to see the complete data set displayed into the Word file as well. Again, it includes the summaries and it includes the full data set. Something else we can do is we can also exclude any sort orders that the user has set, exclude group by. So let's say we group by date here, and right now we only have a single row, and if I export that to Word, I'm only going to see this group row and the summary row. And this is exactly what we get. While if we exclude group by and do the export again, we're essentially going to have the entire data set exported into a flat view as if grouping was not applied at all. So this just goes to illustrate how flexibly you can export the records in your XamDataGrid. Of course, you can also control whether expanded states are shown or not, whether child records are exported within the records that you're going to see in Word. You can also exclude any settings on the field layout and field settings levels to allow you to present different layouts at runtime and within your exported file. Also, you can control the visibility of the export status, the progress bar which is rendered within the grid itself, using this checkbox here. So let's now take a look at how this project is built to see how we set these properties. So what we have here is a window which contains a uniform grid containing different checkboxes which set settings on the Word exporter. So we're initializing the Word exporter, which is an instance of the data presenter Word writer class, as a resource, and then we're modifying options on this resource using all these checkboxes. as you can see, the data presenter word writer properties were modified and correspond exactly to the names which we saw in the checkboxes earlier. Exclude expanded state, exclude field layout settings, and so on. And you can set those to implement the specific scenario that you're looking at. So taking a look at the grid itself, there is no reference in the grid itself to the word export. There are no dependencies from one to the other, so that makes for a very good decoupled way of using one together with the other. So this is just the grid and the way it's set up. Field settings, field layout settings, a variety of summary definitions, a sorted field by date, by default, and so on. So the way we start the export to Word is by clicking a button. So let's see what we're actually doing to export the Word here. So what we're looking at here is all the code you need to write to export your XamDataGrid records. We're basically retrieving the data presenter word writer from the resources we saw declared in the XAML file, and we're calling it export async method, feeding in the XamDataGrid instance and a string storing the name of the file which will contain the exported records. Also, in the XAML code, we have set the export ended event to be raised and to be handled by the exporter event ended method, which in this case shows us a message box saying that the export is complete and also starts the file we've just exported to give us a view of the records we've just exported in the Word document. So this just goes to show how easy it is to use the data presenter word exporter capability and to easily export the records in your XamDataGrids to a Word document.
Infragistics. On the web at infragistics.com.